As the United States prepares to elect its 45th chief executive, Great Epic History presents a guide to the first 44 individuals who have held the office. George Washington emerged as a hero from the Revolutionary War and became the nation's inaugural president, securing unanimous approval from the Electoral College on 2 occasions. He guided the young nation along a path of neutrality and voluntarily relinquished power following 2 terms. John Adams, a man of law, diplomacy, and intellect, was a prominent advocate for American independence from Britain. He successfully averted a full-scale conflict with France, became the first chief executive to inhabit the White House, and also holds the distinction of being the first to be defeated in a re-election bid. Thomas Jefferson is renowned as the principal author of the Declaration of Independence. A passionate proponent of personal freedom, he nevertheless, in common with several early presidents, was an enslaver. While opposing a powerful central government, he significantly expanded the nation's territory by acquiring approximately 800,000 square miles from France. James Madison, standing at 5 feet 4 inches, was the nation's shortest president, yet his influence was immense in securing the adoption of the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights. During his tenure, he was compelled to lead the nation in another conflict with Great Britain to defend American maritime rights. James Monroe holds the distinction of being the last president from the Founding Fathers' generation. He issued a warning to European powers against intervening in the Western Hemisphere while pledging U.S. non-interference in European affairs. He endorsed legislation limiting slavery's expansion to existing slave states and territories south of the Missouri Compromise line, and also backed the colonization of Liberia by free Black Americans, an effort that led to its capital being named Monrovia in his honor. John Quincy Adams, offspring of the second president, was a distinguished diplomat. His administration concentrated on fostering economic growth and successfully retired a substantial portion of the national debt. Andrew Jackson, a stern soldier celebrated for his role in the War of 1812, was the founder of the Democratic Party. Having been wounded in a duel, his forceful leadership style led his adversaries, the Whigs, to label him a tyrant. He instituted a policy of compelling Native American peoples to relocate west of the Mississippi River. Martin Van Buren was the first president born after the nation declared its independence. The son of a tavern keeper, his home language was Dutch. His single term was overshadowed by a severe economic panic, and despite multiple attempts, he never regained the presidency. William Henry Harrison, a military figure known for campaigns against Native Americans, delivered the lengthiest inaugural address on record. His time in office, however, was the briefest, as he succumbed to pneumonia after just 1 month. John Tyler became the first vice president to ascend to the top office upon his predecessor's death. He was cast out by his own Whig party for rejecting their legislation, which he viewed as infringing upon the rights of individual states. James K. Polk was a dedicated proponent of territorial growth. He approved the annexation of Texas and instigated hostilities with Mexico, leading to the U.S. acquiring vast territories, including California, Nevada, and Utah. He also reached an agreement with Britain to divide the Oregon Country. Zachary Taylor, a lifelong soldier and hero of the Mexican-American War, entered the presidency with no prior voting experience and without firm political allegiances. As disputes over slavery intensified, he threatened to use force against Southern separatists, but his term was cut short by a fatal stomach illness. Millard Fillmore, who rose from a log cabin birth, was the final Whig president. He backed a fragile and ultimately temporary compromise between free and slave states. Franklin Pierce assumed the presidency soon after witnessing the tragic death of his young son, an event that likely plunged both him and his wife into deep sorrow. His administration accelerated the nation's path toward conflict by failing to prevent violent clashes in Kansas between pro- and anti-slavery settlers. James Buchanan made unsuccessful attempts to reconcile the North and South, his failures resulting in a schism within the Democratic Party and prompting Southern states to begin seceding. Abraham Lincoln, the first Republican to hold the presidency, successfully guided the Union to triumph in the Civil War and issued the Emancipation Proclamation. He became the first chief executive to be assassinated, killed by John Wilkes Booth in Washington, D.C. Andrew Johnson, a Southerner of humble origins, remained loyal to the Union during the Civil War. Following the conflict, however, he obstructed congressional efforts to implement reforms in the South, leading to his impeachment, though he was acquitted by the Senate by a single vote. Ulysses S. Grant, a celebrated Union commander in the Civil War, utilized federal power to enforce Reconstruction in the former Confederate states and to protect individuals from violence perpetrated by white supremacist groups. His presidency also involved military campaigns against Native Americans on the Great Plains. Rutherford B. Hayes assumed office following one of the most contentious and scandal-ridden elections in American history. While aiming to mend divisions from the Civil War and Reconstruction, his decision to remove federal troops from the South enabled white supremacists to reassert control. James A. Garfield made progress in challenging corruption within the government, but his initial term was abruptly halted when he was shot by a disgruntled office seeker, dying several weeks later. Chester Arthur, the son of an Irish-born Baptist preacher, unexpectedly rose above partisan politics and carried forward Garfield's efforts to reform the civil service. Grover Cleveland was the first Democrat elected president after the Civil War and remains the only individual to serve 2 separate terms. He frequently wielded his veto power against legislation he considered to exceed the federal government's proper scope, including pension bills for veterans and aid for struggling farmers. Part 2 of this overview will continue with America's 23rd president.